Hi everyone, we're really sorry we lost signal there, and unfortunately we will have lost the questions that were previously posted. If you can just send them through again, and we'll endeavour to answer those, please. Do you remember the last one, Nikki?
There was a lady that was 17 weeks pregnant and struggling with sickness, and it was what foods would help with that.
So again, whenever mums are, I mean, Nikki may add more things in here, but if there's persistent nausea and sickness, sometimes when we explore that further, it's often that there's been long gaps without actually eating anything. So what we would really suggest is eating little amounts, but often, so your sugar levels aren't dropping. And again, just thinking about long-acting carbohydrates, things like, your whole wheat breads and pastas and things like that, and things that are gonna, keep you fuller for longer.
Yeah. And just making sure that you're drinking plenty, because especially with the weather as it is, I think if you're drinking plenty, then that's going to help. Maybe having something at your bedside table when you wake up first thing in the morning can sometimes be really, really useful. So before you get out of bed, you've got something, healthy biscuit, crackers, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, because even sometimes it's that motion sickness. So if you're actually getting out of bed before you've actually eaten anything, sometimes that can set people up the wrong way for the rest of the day. So as Nikki says, if you've got something next to the side of your bed, that can be really helpful. So we've got a message here from Sophie Ragg. What snacks would you suggest taking with you in your hospital bag for labour and afterwards? So some things that are really useful in labour are things like isotonic drinks. So not your fizzy Lucozades, okay? It's your sports isotonic drinks. Still drinks, yeah, absolutely. Is there anything?
I think something that's going to give you a burst of energy, but bearing in mind not to have too much sugary snacks, because that's not going to be great for you. I think nuts and seeds and things like that can be quite a good source of energy.
Absolutely.
Again, biscuits, things like that, something that's going to give you a bit of an energy burst when you need it. I think generally in labour you're not really going to feel like having anything substantial, so just small healthy snacks are a good idea.
We've got another message here. So Carla Lewis, sleeping at night is becoming a struggle now. I'm 36 weeks pregnant. My hips are in agony at night time. So again, when you're sleeping in the bed, try and get a pillow in between your knees. So you're just trying to keep your hips aligned. If you haven't already tried that, and again, we wouldn't recommend you being completely flat on your back. So again, it's lying on your side, but perhaps having either one of those V-shaped pillows or a pillow in between your legs at least, just to try and keep those hips aligned and stable.
Yeah, and just keeping yourself supported, so even having a pillow underneath your bump at night is really, really useful. And just when you're turning over in bed, turning with your legs together rather than kind of twisting on one leg at a time, that can be really helpful.
And also when you're getting out of bed as well, it's not just pulling yourself straight upright, turning yourself on to the side, bringing both legs down and then bringing yourself up.
And if you're struggling to actually get to sleep, just having a really good evening routine, warm bath, something chamomile tea or something like that. Some people like lavender. Can sometimes be quite useful.
And again, just trying to relax the mind. So, often at night, if we're on our phones or, things, we start fixating on things. So it's just trying to maybe do some kind of meditative techniques, mindfulness and things like that, just to try and help bring you off to sleep, really.
But also just some gentle walking it can be really, really useful with things like hip pain and things like that, particularly if you're struggling with that, but will also help with the sleep element as well. So try that.
And also exercises on a gym ball, if you've got like a birthing ball, again, just to try and help with movement. Another one, let's have a little look. Will pelvic girdle pain be exacerbated by exercise? That was from Marisa Richardson.
Okay. So this is one of the things that I get a lot, and actually, contrary to popular belief, activity will help with pelvic girdle pain, and I think particularly if it started early in pregnancy, certainly walking is really, really useful. And when we're back into a situation where things are open again, swimming can be quite useful, because it's really supportive and you're not putting too much strain. I think the important thing is to remember, if you're going out for a walk and you're feeling pain, is to, firstly, when you plan your walks, try not to plan them to walk too far, because you've got to walk there and walk back. So bear that in mind if you are struggling with some hip pain. But walking will help. And just some gentle exercises on the birthing ball, but just being mindful how you're sitting, so not opening your legs too wide. But it should help. And asked to be referred, asked to speak to a physio is sometimes be useful, because they can give you certain exercises specific for that type of issue.
Lucy Peplet, so I'm 37 weeks and really struggling with sleeping at night due to hip aches and from laying on my side, also struggling with leg cramps in the night. Is there anything you recommend to help with this? Okay, so I think we've answered in relation to kind of some of the helpful tips around kind of getting yourself comfortable within the bed. In relation to leg cramps, again, that can be quite common in pregnancy, can sometimes be an indicator of either too much salt or too little salt. So again, just have a little look at your diet, and even if you think, okay, well, I have quite a healthy, balanced diet, it's sometimes some of the hidden salts and things that you perhaps wouldn't necessarily think are involved, have been added to certain products. So just be aware of that. And if it's too little salt, then perhaps just add a little bit into your cooking and things like that. Again, Lexi Hatton, so I'm 20 weeks and struggling with not eating too much when the only thing that stops me from being sick and feeling faint is food. I've fainted on a few occasions. Any suggestions on what I can eat regularly so I don't pile the weight on? So again, some helpful, healthy snacks. So again, having a moderate, a balanced diet, but having things available like your rice crackers, things that aren't going to be, high in fats, high in sugars, and your quick fixes, really. Anything else you've got? Any tips that you've advised mums? No.
Let me read the question properly. So feeling faint.
I
think sometimes that there can be alterations in blood pressure during pregnancy. So I think it's just making sure that you're well hydrated. I think that would be my first thing, is just making sure I'm drinking plenty, and just keeping yourself safe, really. So if you're feeling faint, making sure you've got somewhere to sit down.
And not leaving long gaps between eating again, because what you don't want is your blood pressure to drop and also your blood sugars, and that can cause you to have a faint.
Yeah, but also if it's happening on a regular basis, have your blood pressure checked, because it could be that your blood pressure is low, in which case I would advise drinking more. But it could just get it checked if it's happening on a regular basis.
But in order to kind of the things to look for in relation to eating, just try and have a look for, even if it's, carrots cut up, celery, your fruits, and again, rice crackers, that type of thing, or your long acting carbohydrates as well.
Yeah, so some vegetable sticks with some hummus or something, that's quite a good carb.
Okay, so a question here from Rebecca Carter about prescription folic acid. How long should I be taking these for? I'm 13 weeks now. Do you want to answer that one?
So we advise taking folic acid in the first trimester of pregnancy, because it helps with the development and certain issues that can come along with that. So up to about 12 weeks, we recommend folic acid. But if it's part of a multivitamin, then
you don't, it's not going to cause harm. Okay, so in that first trimester, as Nikki said, it's to decrease the risk of things like neural tube defects, so around the development stage. But taking it after 13 weeks, if it's part of a multivitamin, there's no problem there. And often you'll find folic acid is actually added to cereals and breads and so on. There's another one around hip pain, often at night. So again, I'm not sure, Flora, if you heard our answer earlier, but again, when you're sleeping, again, just really thinking about putting a pillow in between your knees there, and so that your hips are aligned and you're not causing any destabilization.
And just something. A trick that I actually used in my pregnancy, which I found really, really useful, was I bought a really cheap, like satiny sheet and a satiny nightie, and it actually made it easier for me to turn side to side in bed. It just, was less stressful turning over in bed. It helped a lot, actually.
Another message here from Vicky Gardner. So I'm 30 weeks with 6 baby. Have SPD. I'm having a lot of false contractions. Is there anything that you can help that can help these? My last baby was 8 years ago. Don't remember having them. So you're 30 weeks. So as long as you're not having pain, and they are Braxton Hicks contractions. So if your uterus, your womb is getting tight, but then it's relaxing and there's no pain, and it's just happening now and again, it sounds like Braxton Hicks. But if you're getting any pain or they're becoming more frequent, anything like that, you need to contact our maternity assessment unit for advice to make sure that you're not going into early premature labour. I hope that helps. Marisa Richardson, anything to avoid with pelvic girdle pain?
So again, we've found the earlier you start being active in your pregnancy, the better the outcome is for your pelvic girdle pain. There's lots of information regarding just generally chronic pain and being more active. It's certainly helpful. We know that activity helps with that side of things. But if you're finding that the pain is worse when you're active, it's certainly worth seeking additional advice with that. And just making sure the exercises that you're doing are suitable for the type of pain that you are experiencing.
And if there are exercises that you've been advised to do and it's exacerbating the symptoms, then obviously you need to stop that and maybe look and concentrate more of your efforts on some of the other exercises that help. And just the importance of perhaps doing that every day, but also if it's seizing up and it's worse early on in the morning or just before you go to bed. So again, just trying to channel and use those exercises around that time. So Victoria Dyke, hello, I'm 27 weeks pregnant, struggling to sleep. So again, I think it's just really trying to think about refocusing your mind, whether that's through exercise, mindfulness techniques, but also not being on your phone late at night. And again, it would be useful to know a little bit more information around why you're struggling to sleep. Is it again things around like hip pain, or kind of more around anxiety, or and so on, so that we can just tailor that information for you. Do you want to ask?
I was looking. So from Emma, I understand that lying on the left side at night is best. But if that gets painful, is it okay to switch to the right side? I'm 35 weeks pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So again, wherever possible, it's just what we don't want is you to be completely flat in the bed. So if, you know, for some mums, they can only get comfortable being more upright. If you are, then again, just making sure that there's lots of pillows to support your back. And then either side, if you're lying on one side, again, put a pillow underneath the side of the bum, put a pillow in between your knees, but yes, either side. Cicely Locke, I suddenly have strong, very painful heartburn since the lockdown, as well as upper back pain, shoulder pain. I think it might be because I used to move a lot, cycling to work, and not sit so much at the laptop. I'm 37 weeks pregnant tomorrow. Do you have any tips? I have also lost some weight since the lockdown. So if you're experiencing a lot of heartburn, you can take Gaviscon, and again, just trying to avoid some of those foods that might exacerbate it. So like, you know, foods that are quite high in acid, fried foods, things like that. It doesn't sound like you do eat a lot of that, but again, just in moderation, and take some Gaviscon to help. And again, if you're working at the laptop, is trying to bring the laptop up to eye level, so that you're not reaching down and pulling on your shoulder area. So again, if you've got any way of propping up your laptop so that it's more at the eye level rather than you looking down and pulling on your neck.
And also, it says that you've lost a bit of weight. Are you perhaps feeling a little bit anxious? Because a lot of people are kind of experiencing lots of changes, not only to the way we're living, but working and things like that. So you're having to adjust to those changes. So, and I think sometimes being anxious can come out physically in pain in different places. So it says used to cycle to work. So there's no reason why you can't not cycle and make that your hours exercise a day, but just obviously bearing in mind that as your bump grows, your center of gravity changes, the balance and things changes, and just being mindful of that. But I think maybe just being a bit more active rather than sitting at your laptop, and maybe sort of, you know, taking regular breaks away from your laptop just to kind of have a bit of a stretch out. And I think there are a lot of useful online things to do with mindfulness and things like that if you're feeling particularly anxious about things.
And the Headspace app is very good as well for mindfulness. So Amanda Costello, I'm 23 weeks and have been trying to do walking as often as I can, and I've noticed that my belly seems to become kind of harder when I walk, but it is not painful. Is this a normal feeling? Do you want to answer, or do you want me to answer?
Your uterus is a muscle, so when you walk, it's just like exercising any muscle, and if it goes hard but it's not painful, that sounds like a Braxton Hicks, which is quite normal. But again, if it becomes painful or it's happening more regularly, you should definitely be calling our maternity assessment unit to get some advice.
And again, through the pregnancy as well, the hormones that are released during the pregnancy will relax your ligaments. So, you know, that's why women can experience quite a lot of lower discomfort, particularly around kind of pelvic girdle pain in the lower part of their abdomen.
I don't have much appetite.
So Faith Chapel, I'm 24 weeks and don't have much appetite and haven't done throughout. No cravings and can't eat much more than snacks or feel uncomfortable. Is this normal? Again, it's just looking for the foods that you are able to tolerate. You may, you know, for some women, they can't tolerate having big meals. So it is, you know, thinking about, you know, what you would normally have as breakfast, lunch, dinner. It may become, you know, much more smaller portions, but more frequently, as long as you're taking in nutrients. And again, trying wherever possible to have that balance, you know, within each meal.
Yeah, just make sure you are trying to eat as healthily as possible. I think it's easy to kind of reach for things that make you feel a bit better, but just be mindful about if you're not able to eat larger meals, what you are eating instead, and just kind of make them smaller. It's just some women are just like that and are not able to eat big meals.
Victoria Duck, I think we answered this one.
Sleeping.
Yes.
So again, the restless legs.
So I think we've answered this one. I'm not sure if it kind of got cut off in the last live feed, but from Victoria Dyke, 27 weeks and really struggling to sleep, getting around 4 hours per night. Never had trouble sleeping before, recently suffering from restless syndrome too, which is definitely contributing. Any tips? So again, I think it's just what we've reiterated before, refocusing the mind, keeping yourself active during the day, not overly active that you're absolutely exhausting yourself, but getting some fresh air, change of scenery. And again, balanced diet, not having, caffeinated drinks before bed. And again, not having high sugary foods just before bed. Any other helpful tips like mindfulness techniques? You can get sprays and things for your pillows, again, to help.
I think it's just having like a healthy bedtime routine. So you're winding down towards bed, and however you wind down, whether that by reading a book or having a bath or taking a walk, it just kind of wind down towards the end of the day. And I think not having your brain too active, so don't go on your phone and things like that, because it will.
And the blue light in the phones can really impact and disturb sleep. But also the restless leg side of things, again, it could be because of too much salt in your diet or too little salt. Sarah Louise Chitty, how long of a gap between eating is best with the sickness? I don't stop feeling sick just because I've eaten. Sometimes I feel worse, so worry it's cause of what I've chosen to eat. I'm eating every 2 hours at the moment. So again, Sarah, yes, I would have said around 2 to 3 hours intervals. And again, it's whatever you can tolerate. If you've identified things that are causing the sickness, to worsen, then obviously avoid those. But things like fried foods can set it off. But everyone's very different, or quite high sugared foods again. So some people find just having quite bland foods helps them, and I guess it depends on how many weeks you are, and if it's really persistent and you're actually not able to tolerate diet, then you would need to discuss that with your midwife and GP to see if they need to give you any medication. Amy William, I'm 9 days off due date. I've started snoring really bad and dribbling, and that's not normal for me. Is this okay, or could I be lying the wrong way for the baby? So again, as your uterus, as your womb is starting to grow, obviously is going to push everything up and towards your lung. Your lung capacity is going to diminish and get smaller because everything's being pushed up. So I would say the snoring inside, it probably is more position with yourself, but again, it's just trying to change different sleep positions just to see if that will help ease that.
And I think if you find that naturally you kind of turn onto your back at night, because some people do, it's just having some pillows propped up under you so you're not flat on your back. I think that's definitely a positional thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Jade Larvis, I'm 32 weeks, got bad back, baby number 3. When I went to see the midwife last, she did the measurements. I was 28 weeks but measured 34. Could this be the reason why my back is so painful? I'm hoping my growth scan doesn't get cancelled. So again, symphysis fundal height, yes, you will continue to have that with your community midwife. The more babies you have, and as I said before, the hormones that are feeding the pregnancy, your ligaments tend to become more relaxed, and unfortunately don't go 100% back to normal. So it can pull on your lower back and also in that lower part of your abdomen, or anywhere really where your ligaments are. So again, just thinking about useful exercises just to help so that it doesn't kind of become seized up.
But also just being really aware of position when you're sitting, when you're standing. Try not to stoop, because that will your back will suffer because of that. So when you're sitting in a chair, just
not like us currently.
Yeah, I know we're being really bad, aren't we? Not a very good example. But just having pillows around you so you can sit and be propped up. I know sometimes you can buy these support belts and things to help kind of support round here. and just be mindful of your posture when you're sitting and standing.
So again, Victoria just came back with just a little bit more information there around kind of why she's suffering with sleep, mainly around the restless leg syndrome, and less activity in the day is leaving you more tired, I'm assuming. But again, it's just important to know that you can go outside of the house and get your fresh air, and we would really urge you to do that, even if you're not necessarily doing any more kind of endurance-y kind of exercise, but you're just going out for a walk. It's still important to get that fresh air. Just change of scenery in itself will help refocus the mind.
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately, so Sophie Martin's just put a message: baby's feet are constantly kicking my ribs. Is there an easy way to move her? Unfortunately not, Sophie. Babies will lie in any position they wish. So again, even if you change position when you're sleeping, so some people find that actually lying on one side, they're always getting booted on the one side, so then they have to move to the other. So it's just looking for the most comfortable position for you. So
I think sometimes also just doing some gentle stretching can often help with positioning and things like that, or kind of getting on your hands and knees,
rocking on the ball.
Those sorts of things can help kind of move babies. But otherwise, no, I'm afraid if your little one decides to get wedged under your ribs.
So we have a message then from Ruth Rhodes. My midwife has never measured my bump. I'm now 30 weeks. She also advised that my 36-week scan is cancelled. Can I measure myself? How important is it? So Ruth, no, it is really important as part of every antenatal check. Your blood pressure, your urine should be completed, and also then feeling of your tummy, just to see which position baby's lying in, and then they should be performing the symphysis fundal height. And we start performing that dependent on whether you've had a baby before or not. So if you've had a baby before, it will be at your 28-week check. So if you haven't seen your community midwife recently, then do get in touch with your community midwife, because it is really important that we're plotting the symphysis fundal height.
I think particularly now.
And particularly now around growth, because obviously if we're not doing the 36-week growth scan, then again, if we're picking up any changes in the plotting of the symphysis fundal height, then we will refer you in for an extra scan. So please be reassured that, if there are any changes and they're concerned the baby's not growing as we would hope, then we will refer you in for a scan.
I think that also answers Asha's question. Actually, it's the measuring the fundal height of your bump, basically.
Yeah. So Asha's just asked, with 36-week growth scans cancelled, is there any way to keep an eye on the risks they were looking for? So yes, historically, and actually the majority of hospitals in the UK, it's just specific to Oxford, that everyone else here in Oxford historically has received a 36-week growth scan. But majority of the units in the UK, we will measure symphysis fundal height. If there are any changes or static growth, or growth isn't following the trajectory as what we would hope, then we will be referring you in for a growth scan. But the other way you check for fetal well-being is through your movements. So it's really important that you're monitoring baby's movements daily, and that pattern, you understand your baby's pattern of movements. If that's changed in any way, it's decreased, or you haven't felt movements, then again you need to contact the maternity assessment unit.
But also feeling tummy, your midwife should be feeling your baby in your tummy, so we can get a good idea of position. And if we're unsure, again, we can refer you in for a scan just to check positioning.
Yeah,
but that should be being done after 28 weeks.
Marissa, is it possible to get water retention around your bump? My tummy is really hard, tight and uncomfortable when I walk. So that sounds to me as if it's more like Braxton Hicks, Marissa. Obviously your womb, your baby's inside your womb, and that again is living inside water, amniotic fluid. So there is fluid in the sac, but it sounds like your uterus is getting hard from Braxton Hicks, providing you're not experiencing any pains, as we've talked about before, that you feel that you're possibly going into labour. But it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like Braxton Hicks when you're actually mobilising.
Yeah, that is what that sounds like.
So we've got a message here from Claire Fruin. Hello both, can you recommend a link to any good birthing ball exercises that you can do to get baby in the right position, and when it is good to start doing them from? My last baby was back to back, so anything that will get this one shifting towards forward would be great. I'm expecting another big one, 10 pounds last time, and lovely but long labour and birth, so would love to make that shorter this time. I'm 28 plus 6, I think that is. So again, I don't know, have you got any web pages that you give out in relation to kind of ball exercises? But yoga exercises in pregnancy will be very useful. But if you have got a gym ball, again, just keeping a nice wide stance on the ball, keeping your weight further forward, and then rocking back and forth on the ball. Again, you know, you can be on all fours or leaning over a sofa area. Again, just rocking back and forth just to try and, you know, get baby to rotate into the more optimum position. And I know myself and the MVP have been pulling together some videos as well, so they will be up and on the website as well for people to consider around some possible positions for labour, but can be used in the antenatal period as well. So if your community midwife is feeling your tummy and she says baby feels like it's slightly back to back, again, you can certainly get on the ball and try in all fours positions just to try and help rotate baby round into the optimum position.
And I think it's just remembering in everyday life, if you're kind of sat slouched back like that, you almost act as a hammock for the baby. So it's just making sure you're sitting forward and your posture's good, and again, just being active, walking up and down stairs, side to side, that sort of thing can be really, really useful.
So Ruth's just come back with 28 weeks. She didn't measure me. Okay, Ruth, I would suggest just getting in touch with your community team just to discuss that, just to kind of clarify as to, you know, whether the measurement was taken and, you know, wasn't relayed to you, or if you don't feel that it was done at all, then, you know, we do need to make sure that that is being completed. So we've got another message here from Tatovic. Hi, I'm 35 weeks of low platelets, about 112. I'm worried about it. Next appointment, blood test with midwife is on the 21st. So again, it's difficult to know when your last platelet was checked. I guess at 34 weeks. So yes, as long as it's up and over 100, we will still support, you know, we'll still support you to birth in the midwifery-led units. So again, we will recheck that, and a plan will be made according to what the level comes back as. And that can be tested all the way up, you know, because it can increase and then it may drop again, and it may increase and drop again. So we'll just continue to check it through the pregnancy. Even might be one of the recommendations is that it's tested when you come in labour. Yeah.
Vicky Gardner.
So we've got a message from Vicky Gardner. Sorry if it sounds silly, but can a baby be overactive?
No silly questions.
No, absolutely.
I think it's so different from baby to baby, and some babies can be quite quiet, again, but regular, just making sure you are getting regular movements of what's normal for your baby. And if your baby has always been particularly active and that's normal for them, then absolutely, that's fine. I think it's sudden it's sudden changes from what's normal for your baby that you should be contacting the maternity assessment unit about, And if you're worried about your baby's movements, kind of not sitting on it for
Absolutely.
overnight and thinking I'll phone them tomorrow. It's always really, really important to act on it when you're thinking about it. And I can't stress that enough. But if your baby has always been active, then that's normal for your baby.
Got another message here from Ella Hughes. My baby seems to get hiccups numerous times a day. I'm 35 weeks. Is this normal? Yeah, this is normal. What we tend to find is if babies tend to have hiccups in the uterus, they tend to have hiccups then soon after being born as well. But yeah, it's normal.
Yeah, they're swallowing the fluid that's surrounding, and as like you and I would get hiccups, it's the same for them. So yeah, that's normal.
Sophie Middleton, I'm due to be induced tomorrow. I haven't heard anything yet about coming in. Who shall I phone if I don't hear anything? Just trying to plan childcare.
So they usually call.
They will call you
today. It's usually the
evening before. Yeah. So again, you should expect a call this evening from the levels. So they will call and let you know what time to plan to come in.
And if you haven't heard, perhaps
call the maternity assessment unit, and they will advise you or get in contact with the levels to find out. Are there any other questions? So we've still got a bit of time. If there are any more questions that people have, we'll give it another 5 minutes. And tomorrow, just to make you aware, so again, we've got a session on every day this week. So another session then tomorrow at 2:30. So that'll be with Sarah Piercy, who is going to talk about the latent phase of labour. So that early stage of labour before you're 4 centimetres dilated, and when that cervix is still, starting to thin out, starting to efface. So she'll talk about some helpful tips in relation to help you with the latent phase of labour. And then we've got another session on Thursday, which will then start talking about active phase of labour. And then Friday, then more around kind of if you need more kind of medicalised support through labour and birth, epidurals and so on. They're going to talk about that then on Friday. Got one more question here. So Hannah Ferguson, I'm 23 weeks. I've been feeling quickening for the past 2 to 3 weeks. I think the baby's movements are getting stronger, but I've not noticed a pattern to movements as yet. It seems different each day. When should I start to notice a pattern? So fetal movements, women it varies with every mum, but it usually around 22, 23 weeks, you'll start to feel real profound kind of active movements. So what we would say is just try and monitor it now since you've started to feel them more active. Oh, we're back. Sorry, we lost connection. So I was just saying about now that you've started to feel more active movements, Hannah, if you just start monitoring them every day and work out that pattern for that is normal for your baby, and you will start to feel, okay, actually my baby's most active in the morning or most active in the evening, but you will start to really notice that. And again, we've had this one earlier, but from Vicky Gardner, any recommendations on snacks for during labour for mums with...
Is that gestational diabetes?
Oh yeah, gestational diabetes, sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's remembering that fruit is carbohydrate, so you have to limit that when you have gestational diabetes. So trying nuts and seeds is great because it will have no impact on your blood sugar levels, and in labour your blood sugar levels will be monitored quite closely. So things that you would normally have as part of your diet with gestational diabetes, so those sorts of things that you would have to give you a bit of energy but not necessarily that have a high carbohydrate content. So I'm just trying to think of a few things. I mean, obviously pack a few like half a banana would be fine as a snack. Nuts and seeds, as I said, water would be great. Sugar-free drinks you can buy juices and things that are sugar free. That would be absolutely fine to have. But just it's kind of applying the same principles as you would have throughout pregnancy as well. So looking at your snack portion throughout the day, and applying that in labour. You're not really going to want to have anything substantial to eat during labour. You'll just, I don't think your body tolerates it as well, so you just don't fancy it. So just those snacks that are
and the sugar-free drinks,
that would be good for you.
So Faith's just put, I'm 24 weeks, have pain under my right rib that stops me being able to sit comfortable. Feels like nerve pain and can feel cold or like pulling. Again, it sounds like ligament type pain, because as the uterus is starting to ascend upwards, the more, you know, obviously the more weeks that pass in the pregnancy, your uterus is going to start moving up and up towards your lung area. So again, it sounds like it's pulling on the ligaments just here. So again, gentle exercise, you know, getting into optimum positions, try not to be, you know, leading a sedentary life, you know, always